thank you guys for jumping on the call. Tonight we're having pitching coach and strength coach at Pomona Pitzer College, Jason Staub. Tell us a little bit more about himself and what he's doing over there. They've done a really good job, and over the past couple of years, know Jason through PFA and Dave Coggin, and really excited to have you on the call. So go for it, Jason. Take it away.
Yeah, first of all, thanks for having me. Excited to be here. Um, I I grew up in Connecticut, so I started playing baseball out there. I went to Eastern Connecticut State University, which is a D3 powerhouse school. During my time in school, I got interested in the strength and conditioning route, so that took me on a couple of internships with schools like Quinnipiac University, the University of Connecticut, where I worked at their baseball team in the weight room, and at UConn, they told me to apply to Springfield College for a master's degree. I did that. I got accepted into their strength and conditioning program there. Um, at Springfield College, they require you to have 3 internships during your time there. So I was able to intern with their strength conditioning for Springfield College. I did a virtual internship with Elon during COVID. And when I finished all my classes, I went to TCU and worked with their sports performance, their baseball, football, and women's basketball programs. After my time at TCU, I want to get back into the college coaching realm and work with baseball players. And I guess during my time at Springfield College, I worked for my old high school and club ball team. So I got some experience and reached out to Pomona Pitzer. Coach Pericolosi here is also a Connecticut guy and has a Springfield College background for his master's degree as well. And he hired me. And this is where I've been the last 5 years.
Very nice. Very nice. So let's go ahead and talk more about, I guess, questions that people might have about the D3 level compared to other levels, because it used to be, at least when I was growing up, more of kind of an afterthought for a lot of people. But lately, seeing some of the guys that you guys have had, really high caliber players going through the Division III level. What have you seen in the last couple of years?
The game's definitely changed at our level. When I was getting recruited to play college baseball, guys who threw hard were throwing maybe mid to upper 80s. And now at our level, if you're throwing mid 80s, that's a pretty standard fastball and almost a BP type fastball. And a lot of guys in our conference and on our team throw in the low 90s or upper 80s. And then the hitting's also improved. Launch angle was a thing where a lot of teams bought into that, but Southern California baseball is just pretty good overall, and we play against a lot of Southern California and Northern California players.
Yeah, for sure. I think what's really funny, you guys have always had kind of an interesting recruiting strategy of getting pretty good athletes. But with your background in the weight room, what do you think has been your biggest development success at Pomona?
I'd say one, being able to be the strength and conditioning coach for the baseball team and also the pitching coach for the baseball team. I get a lot of hands-on work with those guys. And early on the fall, when we're maybe not practicing as much, there's a time where I can evaluate them, see how they move, also get to know them as people and build a sort of relationship or a trust, which creates buy-in as you get going throughout the baseball season. My first season actually at school, we only had 4 days of practice in the fall with the D3 rules. So we did that in November, and I didn't really get to coach a lot of kids on the mound during those 4 days, but I was with them 4 days a week in the weight room for the entire semester, and we were really able to work on some of the foundational movements that I think really play in baseball. Getting strong in single leg movements, getting strong on different planes of motion, and producing power in positions that get guys to be able to throw harder, hit the ball farther, run faster. All that stuff has really been beneficial for me.
Awesome. Awesome. Like, does that a lot of that come from your time at TCU? Can you kind of delve into what you learned there and how you brought that over to Pomona?
Yeah, so TCU was great. I worked with Zach Dakin there. He was my internship supervisor, and he's the baseball strength and conditioning coach for TCU. He does a great job. A lot of what we do is somewhat stolen in a good way, but it's there's always mixing and matching in strength conditioning, and he works with maybe a different caliber of athletes who come in already more physically developed, I would say. At the Division III level, we're trying to teach foundational movements, and a lot of the athletes that we recruit have not reached their physical maturity yet. So helping them get there is a huge part of my job. And some of the things I learned from Zach was getting athletes to sprint and having them do that multiple times a week because that teaches the body to move faster and be more explosive. Sprinting's the one human thing that we do in the weight room that can translate pound for pound to the field, right? We always want to be faster with pretty much every sport that we do. And then understanding how to mix and match volume and intensity of lifts so I can get guys really strong in the fall and winter, but also be able to maintain that once we're in season was really great information for me to receive from him. And understanding pretty much how to monitor workload when they're in season and playing 40 games in 12 weeks and making sure our best players are healthy and on the field is pretty much the number one thing in the weight room at that point.
Awesome. So how does the lifting, I guess, change between the fall and the winter when your guys are trying to develop, and then when you get into spring?
In the fall and winter, we have more volume. So the lifts are a little bit longer. At our school, we work about an hour to an hour and 15 minutes in the weight room in the fall sessions. We'll go 4 days a week. Again, it starts with very basic movements that we begin to make more complex and add different challenges with single leg stability or single arm stability. Um, we're trying to just build a really good foundation, though, that as we transfer closer to the end of the fall and the winter, we're starting to work with more of a power focus. So using the strength that they've gained in the off season, we're working to get them to move things fast because that translates better closer to baseball. And then when we're in season in baseball in the spring, we're trying to keep guys at a lower volume but keep the intensity high, which means weights are so like if I'm front squatting 315 for 5 reps in the fall, in the spring I still want our guys to be able to front squat 315. It might just be for 1 or 2 reps for 5 sets. So we just play around with that load management that way.
Gotcha. Is that the same for everybody on the team, or do you do something different for maybe the guys that aren't playing as much compared to like starters?
Yeah, so in season, I'd say the guys who are we classify them as more of our developmental type athletes. They'll if they don't play on the weekend or their bodies feel fresh, I might tell them to add a set here or there. So they're getting more work. They're able to physically develop during the time that we have with them in the spring. The guys who are maybe playing every day or pitching uh, on a specific schedule, their workouts will change and be kind of monitored based off of where their fatigue levels are at. And in the weight room, we're fortunate we have a force plate at our school, but we also have velocity based training tools that allow me to see how fast they're moving the bar at a specific weight. And I can set ranges for them that get them to the peak power place that we're trying to be at, or more of a monitoring and keeping them at more of a lesser intensity in the weight room.
Very cool. Very cool. So I guess going back a bit, you were talking about your first year. You realized you only had 4 days a week with the guys in the fall. Obviously, kind of challenging. What other kind of challenges did you discover about the D3 level that you maybe didn't anticipate? So
Yeah, so I would say time is one thing. Not being able to necessarily be on the field and develop guys throughout the entire fall. We're put on a 119-day count throughout a calendar year where we can work with our athletes, and that includes the spring. So In the falls now we get about 15 days where I get to coach them hands on the field. So we have to be very precise with our planning on what we're doing during those specific days, making sure I can see the majority of the bullpens that they throw and actually help with their development instead of just them guessing on what they need to do to get better. Um, Another challenge is when we're not on a practice day, I can't necessarily reach out to an athlete and say, "Hey, we need to meet today about a new pitch that you're trying to work with or a mentality thing." My athletes have to reach out to me if they want to meet and have those kinds of discussions. So I'd say time is the biggest constraint, and at the D3 level, you just have to be really good at managing that and being flexible and sometimes working the system a little bit.
Oh, dang. That's definitely a bit challenging, I guess, with they can't, they have to reach out to you. So there's absolutely no contact with their players other than those 15 days.
Yeah, if it's not one of those 15 days, I am not supposed to say this is what you should be doing throwing today. Our guys hold captain's practices on their own, but we can't draw up anything for them. It's all pretty much based on what our leaders can come up with. And usually I have good relationships with those guys, but it's a lot of trust in our players to do the right thing on those days.
Gotcha, gotcha. So that probably parlays into my next question, which is the challenges of recruiting and getting those right type of guys on campus. At the D3 level, obviously, I know you've talked to me about some of these challenges. Can you tell some of the people listening what are the biggest challenges for you, especially recruiting pitchers? Uh,
Yeah, so I'd say the number one roadblock for our school at least is that they're high academic programs. Pomona Pitzer is unique where I recruit to both Pomona College and Pitzer College, and they form one athletics program together. So we're recruiting students to two high academic schools where one transcript might work for one school, but it doesn't for the other one. So you have to be really good at reading GPAs and reading transcripts to see if a student can even fit into your program academically, so you can continue to recruit them. That's the number one thing. Besides that, um, we're we're a top 25 Division III program that's competing for a national championship every year, and we try to recruit kids who we feel like are borderline Division I players. And when we're doing that, you sometimes lose guys to Division I programs because they might have more money they can offer or potential NIL stuff, right? So that's definitely a challenge as well. When I'm looking at pitchers specifically, um, you need to be really good at understanding the data and watch when I watch guys compete. I need to see someone who's pretty close to game ready at our level. Because most college coaches will probably tell you the development part's really fun, but you don't want to have 20 pitchers and 15 of them are project guys. You want to have 15 guys who are ready to compete at your level and five guys maybe who are project guys where you can help them reach a higher ceiling.
yeah, I definitely understand that. Too many project guys can be a lot of work and definitely not make the season go well. And then finding that balance, I guess, of what can play at your level, but also be competitive, but not so much that you lose them to a D1. How many guys have bounced from Pomona Pitzer to D1s or D2s in the last couple of years? How many have you seen that happen?
So I would say fortunately we haven't lost a ton who hadn't graduated from the school. But when guys still had that COVID year, we lost four pitchers and two or three position players. One guy went to D2 as a position player, but two other guys went to D1 schools.
Jeez. Yeah, that's with that extra red shirt or that grad year, they were able to transfer with the free transfer.
Yeah, and that's somewhat common, I'd say, in our conference. We play in a pretty good conference. A school one of our competitors, Cal Lutheran, they had a catcher who went to Santa Barbara and was drafted the year after. Um, and then I know other schools in our conference like Chapman University, they had in 2019 a third round draft pick on their team. So they're good players, and you're not only are you trying to bring those guys in, but you're trying not to lose them to higher level D1 or Power Four programs.
Yeah. So what do I guess players need to do to separate themselves in general um, when it comes to being a Pomona recruit?
So for our guys, if we're talking pitching, I want guys who one have a clean arm action, and that just jumps out a lot to me because I know if their arm moves well, it's easier to fix maybe some of the lower body stuff or some of the sequencing things that they have going on, or at least that's what I'm better at. Um, Another thing, guys need to be able to fill up the strike zone. So for us, that's usually a minimum of 2 pitches that you can throw for a strike at any count, or that's like the perfect world what I'm looking for. And then if a guy can flash a third or maybe fourth pitch where it's less consistent but shows some promise, we'll look at those things as well. Um, Velo for us can vary. I'd say we've had guys in the program that were successful throwing 78 to 82, but we also have guys that can throw 90 to 94 miles per hour on the staff. So uh, having a bunch of different guys that can do a bunch of different things is pretty important in our pitching staff.
Definitely, definitely. Are there any? Because I know Pomona is one of the few D3s in the country that actually has a TrackMan in stadium, and I know with access to PFA, I'm sure you guys have had access to portable TrackMan if you don't already have one too. Um, how important is the data piece for recruiting pitchers? Is that something you guys look at a lot?
We do. It's tough to always get our recruits on a track, man. So, um, I prefer guys to send me their data, especially if they've got something that's an outlier or stands out for our level or at any level. Those guys always kind of hop to the front of my recruiting board, at least for me. Um, a lot of it is kind of also understanding what our guys' pitch shapes and their stuff looks like on a TrackMan, and trying to almost, when you're at a recruiting event, visualize that from a guy throwing in game to a hitter at a showcase, where you may not always have that data, but understanding what one guy's stuff looks like on TrackMan, you can kind of see some similarities to younger kids getting scouted and recruited at those events.
Very nice. Have there been any trends, I guess, that you've noticed like play especially well at your level?
Yeah, I'd say guys that can ride a fastball up in the zone in the upper 80s or low 90s get over a lot of bats, so that creates a good amount of swing and miss at our level. Another thing that I guess we look at maybe on the recruiting side of things is guys that can spin a breaking ball at a pretty good velo, um, because that usually tells us that there's some more in the tank for them developmentally with some fastball velo at the end of the day. One story I like to tell is we had a kid who came to one of our showcases his senior year of high school. He was 82, 83 with his fastball, but he spun his slider at 2,600 RPMs at 78 miles per hour. And we're like, all right, that's a pretty good pitch. The kid's pretty skinny. Hopefully, we can put some strength on him and he'll develop. And 1 year after college, or 1 year into college, he was able to shoot up to 88 to 90 miles per hour, and his slider is 85, 86. So that plays pretty well at our level.
Yeah, I would imagine so. That plays well at a lot of levels. Very nice. So I guess touching on that, you said the strength was big for that player. Like in general, what's a trend that you've noticed from players coming into your program? What is their strength and conditioning background usually like?
So one of the positive trends, at least in strength conditioning, is that more people are doing it, I would say. So our athletes have actually come in the last 3 or 4 years stronger and stronger every year from a freshman class, which is pretty cool. I will say that maybe some of the movements that they train or the movements that they're strong in are a lot of the double leg stuff. So like hex bar deadlift, a barbell front squat, um, a barbell bench, and not as much of the single leg loading, not as much of a RDL or hip hinge pattern. So those are some of the things that we really emphasize early on in our programming to get guys comfortable and strong in those positions because they're going to be in those positions a lot on the baseball field.
Gotcha. And what would you tell, I guess, high school or even youth players when it comes to getting in the weight room? Because I know, at least when I was in high school, we barely touched the weight room, at least where I was in California. But some states it's a little bit different. But what would you give general advice?
I would say even if you don't have this fancy strength coach or private trainer, you should get in the weight room and just do something, right? It might not be the perfect program ever, but you're going to, if you're consistent with it and you keep building and you keep staying consistent, even in season when it's difficult to do that, you're going to see some major changes there. A lot of guys that I either played with or have coached before getting to college maybe lifted in the fall and winter. But once the spring came around, they didn't touch a weight. And those guys are losing out on a ton of development because adult male bodies don't really reach physical maturity until they're 25 years old. So if you're only working out for half a year, you're getting half as much development as someone who's being consistent throughout an entire year program and doing that for 4 years of high school and then 4 more years of college. They're going to be at a pretty different level than a guy who maybe does 4 half years in high school and 4 half years in college.
When would you say youth athletes should start lifting? Because I know there's been like the old wives' tale is like don't lift till you're an adult. I think that's been obviously proven false. When would you say is a great time for a young athlete to start lifting?
I don't know about necessarily lifting like 500 pounds on a back squat or something like that, but I would say general movements. It's really important to start doing that maybe when you're 10, 11, 12 years old, right? Getting comfortable lunging or lateral lunging or doing an RDL, something where you're maybe not loading it up a ton, but you're teaching your body and creating movement patterns that are going to help you develop strength as you get older and more physically mature when puberty comes along. So I would say um, guys can start with early movements then. Push-ups are great. That's a great total body exercise for a lot of athletes. Most people think that's just your pecs or your chest, but you're working your shoulders, chest, core, glutes, hips, thighs if you're doing them right. And it's at a lot of levels a general fitness requirement because it is such a total body movement. But once you start adding some weight, I'd say you should start doing that once you get to high school or maybe the end of middle school and start like pushing yourself. That's not maybe sets of 3 reps, but it's 8 to 10 reps where you're building a good foundation at that point.
Very nice. I think that's some advice I definitely wish I knew earlier on in my life.
Me too.
Yeah, right. Different than let's go run a million poles. So, so now I guess is the time like that. Just open it up to people at home watching. If you guys have any questions, you can unmute yourself at this time and ask away.
Hey, good evening. I have a question on if you have high schoolers out there who are interested, how do they go about initiating the process to contact the program and talk about data like you were discussing? What's the best way to go about doing that?
Are you talking about with the weight room side of things?
You say weight rooms? I'm talking about weight room, academics, everything. your recruiting, all those different aspects?
So I'd say for us, we always start recruiting early. And the best way to get in touch with us is to reach out through email, either through myself or anyone else on our coaching staff. We try to get back to all those emails, and in the email, we're looking for guys that post their GPAs, maybe their academic transcript, um, a stat or metric that stands out that separates them from other players. Um, those are kind of the biggest things that we look at, but I highly recommend student athletes do research into what school they think is a good fit for them. Um, we'll get a lot of blanket emails from a mass database where students are sending out that they have a 3.1 GPA, and that's not super close to what we're looking for with our high academic athletes. So um, that it shows us that they didn't do the research into our program or the stuff that we offer academically or athletically. And I think creating a list of schools and then going and following up and keep reaching out. Sometimes coaches are busy during this time of year, and especially in spring, but keep emailing, keep sending schedules of where you're going to play. So either myself or another coach on our staff can go watch you guys play baseball over the summer. That's where we like to be. We like to be out on the field watching kids play, and that's going to show us if they're going to be a good fit for our program or not.
So piggybacking off that, Jason, what are some things like do's and don'ts for, I guess, high school kids when it comes to emailing college coaches? Like what are some things? I know you mentioned some really good things that they should include in an email. What are things that they should not do? Because I know there's some people that really spam emails and don't do a good job, and they get kind of just passed by. Like, what are some of those things that you don't want to see in an email?
Well, number one, I don't want to see the wrong coach's name in the email or the wrong school in the email. That shows that you didn't spend a lot of time proofreading or going through what you're sending out to people. I also don't want to see a giant paragraph of stuff. I want kind of short, concise notes on who you are, why you think you're a good fit for our program, and maybe where we can follow up or see you play. Yeah, but just the general stuff that doesn't feel personal kind of rubs us a little bit the wrong way sometimes.
Gotcha. Awesome. Thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions, guys?
So, more specifically for pitchers, like on your team, what do you look for on like a really good fastball? Like when you're looking at fastball and the data, what do you look for specifically?
Well, I'd say it depends on what we're looking to fill or what we're losing on our pitching staff. But most of the time, I look for a guy that can either ride a fastball really well or can sink a fastball really well. I'm not really looking for that middle ground. And then the ability to, I guess, repeat velocity. So it's not a giant range of like 80 to 89, but more of consistent 85 to 87, I'd say would be better for us. And then I guess just watching it play. So seeing how that fastball works to the hitter that they're facing. Are they consistently over guys' bats? Are they consistently getting weak contact with it? Those are things that help go a long way in the recruiting process for us.
Thank you.
Awesome. Well, I think we'll shut it down then right now. Thank you so much, Jason, for coming on the call. Really gave us a really good look at Pomona Pitzer and everything that's going on. Do you have any final notes that you would like to tell people about your program or some of your views?
Not a ton. I'd say just if you're a high academic guy and you feel like playing baseball in Southern California is something that you can see yourself doing, reach out. We'd love to follow up, and we're always looking for quality arms or quality baseball players.
Awesome.
But thanks for having me, Brett.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Jason. Really appreciate that. So again, for those of you listening, we're going to be doing another webinar in 2 weeks. That's going to be with Justin Schwartz, former MLB scout with the New York Mets. And we're going to be talking about the art of deception with him and how he evaluates deception data. If you are not already following us on What's Next Baseball on Instagram, go ahead and do that. And look forward to seeing you guys again soon. Thank you.